space that's around him. He's lightning fed by the space that surrounds him. Take it all in. Breathe. Forever be. Forever.
Hey, welcome to Unsung. I'm your host, Blake Quimby. We're glad you're with us today. Before we get started, I want to just encourage you to go to these platforms and follow us, subscribe. We'd love to have you along for the journey as we talk with those who are lifting the limelight in their area and supporting roles. I think it'd be fun, so make sure you do that tonight. Our guest today spends his time playing concerts and house shows across the country, writing for other artists, and providing his 3 kids with plenty of stories to tell their counselors in 20 years. If you could please welcome Andy Gullahorn.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Andy, welcome to Unsung.
Thank you.
Well, hey, let's get into your story. You're not originally from Nashville, right? Where are you originally from?
Originally from Austin, Texas. Grew up there all the way through high school, then moved to Nashville for college and been here ever since.
Yeah. Is your family still there in the great state of Texas?
I do. I mean, my parents still live in the house I grew up in, and then I got a brother and a sister there, and then now my daughter, my second born, retraced my steps and grew up in Nashville and went to college in Austin, Texas, so she's there right now.
Nice. Well, if you ever want to come back to Texas, we'll gladly accept you back with open arms. Maybe some tacos.
I like
possibly.
to come back to Texas again and again.
And did you have family? You have like sisters, brothers, all that? They're still in Texas, or they get scattered around, or what's
Two
that like?
of my 3 siblings are there. So my older brother and my younger sister are there. I've got one other brother out in California.
Wow. And then now you have a wife and some children. How did you meet your wife?
I met my wife first day of class at Belmont University. We were in a small honors program together with about 15 other people. So we had class together every day, and we were in a freshman Bible study together. You know, starting that first year, we were friends that whole first year and started dating sophomore year.
Yeah. And have you always been musically, like, has that been something that you've always done, or what really, when did you realize that this is something that you really love doing?
Well, I from a young age, I was playing piano and picking stuff out by ear and learning like Suzuki piano method. And I was, so I always had kind of a musical ear, I guess, but I quit that when I was about 12 because it was really important that I start training to be in the NBA. That was my dream.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And so, I kind of stopped doing music. I mean, I say stopped doing it. I probably still played it for fun. I don't remember. And then picked up the guitar in high school and started writing songs and just loved playing guitar, loved writing songs, and never thought I would ever be able to do that for a living. But loved it enough to move to Nashville because that's where my favorite songwriters were. And just thought, I want to be around that and see what happens. And I still feel that way. I want to be around it and see what happens.
I was thinking about the first time I actually saw you live, which was, if I can remember correctly, I believe it was maybe 1999, 2000. So it's been a while, right? And the funny thing is that so I was at A&M. We went up there to watch a show with a friend, and I think you guys were opening for Caedmon's Call and Andrew Peterson. That whole night just completely changed my life. But I remember your wife came on, Jill Phillips. She came on, and you were there with her. And I don't remember if she introduced you at all or not, but I remember just being so intrigued by how you played acoustic. And then like 20 something years later, I finally like find find your records and like find out what you're doing. But this whole time, I literally am like, man, this guy I heard play like 20 years ago. I've never heard anyone play like that, and I've been trying to find him, and we finally found you, found your records, and had totally enjoyed it. So I've been searching to find you for over 20 years. So it's been
My goodness. Well, that's very kind of you to say, and to waste all your time doing that. But yeah, that would have been, if it was opening for Caedmon's, it would have been 99, in the fall of 1999, on their 40 Acres tour with Bevo Norman, not Andrew. I think Andrew did that tour earlier.
Yep.
And but yeah, I think, we'd been married for a year at that point.
Wow.
And Jill had just signed this record deal with Word Records, and they sent her out on the road, and I was her guitar player, and I loved being her guitar player. But I'm pretty sure she didn't. If she introduced me, she didn't. I'm sure she didn't introduce me as her husband. And I don't remember if the record label explicitly said not to do that. But I only know that didn't happen because after shows, people would come up to me and ask me if Jill was dating anybody and if I could hook them up. I was like, sure. I know her pretty well.
Oh yeah. Well, it was a magical night. I mean, y'all sounded great. I was just really intrigued by your overall just guitar, how you kind of tackle that. What can you give some insight on how you've kind of come up with your style? Was there like, anyone that inspired you to kind of create that type of style that you have? Because it's definitely different than other people and other players, right?
I think a lot of it was just, there wasn't a lot of intentionality to it. I had some musical training background in piano, but I think I had lost almost all of that by the time I started playing guitar. And so for me, it was such a personal, private thing. Like, I didn't have friends that were playing. We didn't have like a band where we learned how to play together. So it's just me by myself learning how to play country songs. And I didn't start with using a pick. I didn't have a pick.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out, I didn't even know what the chords were called. So I would just try to figure out, how to make the guitar kind of make the same kind of sound as the chords that I was hearing. So I think a side effect from that was it got me finger picking first. I didn't play with a pick until maybe 3 or 4 years into playing guitar.
Oh, okay.
Which I think some people, not that that's totally weird in learning guitar, but I think there's some people that start with a pick. So I just started learning a more melodic finger picking style just because, I don't know, that's just how I would pick out the chords. And then there were other people like, well, I mean, certainly listen to James Taylor. I wanted to learn a bunch of James Taylor guitar riffs and that kind of thing. And then would listen to a bunch of folk musicians that used open tunings. So like David Wilcox or Pierce Pettis, Jonathan Brooke, and Patty Larkin. So I would be like trying to figure out these songs and like, man, that doesn't work. Like, how does he have that bass note so low? And then it sounds like there's an open string on this and I can't figure that out. So I started trying to tune my guitar to sound like theirs. And sometimes I would get it right. So whatever the style is that I have was just kind of trial and error in that way. But also, as I grew as a guitar player, like through college, when I would accompany people and they're like, hey, will you play this Susan Ashton song for me? And I would want to play it exactly the way that it was on the record. Right. I didn't want to look at a chord chart and play the chords. I wanted it to sound like it was on the record, or better, hopefully. And so part of that being just an accompanist, as I started to play with a pick and playing open tunings, there were a lot of times where it's just me. I was the only instrumentalist for either for myself or for other people. So I had to learn how to cover different, both the percussive aspects of it, and that's one of the reasons why I love playing open tunings, because I could cover some of the bass side of
Sure.
things. And then
Hmm.
when I started playing for guys like Andrew Peterson, he's a great guitar player, and he would play in standard tuning or dadgad. And so then I was like, oh, I just moved everything to open C so that I could play in a different voicing than he was playing, and hopefully, you know, complement what he was already doing. So whatever my style is, if it is a style, that might be too nice of a word for it.
I remember that one night I was saying I saw you. I was like, man, this guy's playing with like even when I had seen Andrew Peterson, I was like, man, some of these guys are playing with like these cut capos and different. And I remember growing up too with just like Shane and Shane, and they had these cut capos and all this stuff, and I was like, man, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like it just sounds you can cover a lot of ground by just
Mm-hmm.
doing that, right?
It's just showing off.
Well, it's pretty neat, man. But well, so you when you moved to Nashville, Belmont, you met your wife, doing all that. Did you have when you moved to Nashville? It sounds like you wanted to kind of make this a career. Did you want to be just a backing a musician, or did you have at that time aspirations to be a singer songwriter, kind of what you are now?
My dream, I think, first and foremost, was to would have been just to write songs for other people.
Hmm.
There were a lot of guitar players who like way better than I am. So I never thought that I would like play guitar for people. Um, and so I wanted to just write songs, and then secondly would be to play guitar. I learned that some people, you know, I could do that to some degree. Certain kinds of songs I could play, and then me traveling around doing my own music. I still think of it as me recording songs and traveling around just as a songwriter, hoping that there's some real artist will one day record my songs. That's kind of how I think about it. But to be fair, once I started traveling and playing my own shows and playing my own songs, I realized that I really did like it. I still don't think of myself as a, you know, artist artist, like a real artist,
Hmm.
but I guess that's what I have been doing for a living for a while now. So I should own it at some point. But I still like the posture of, oh, I just like writing songs and I want to share the songs with people, and this is the best way for me to do it. Um, but if Jill still wanted to travel full time and wanted me to be her guitar player, I I would have been happy to just keep doing that. I'm not. Um, I mean, you could say it's in a virtuous way, not really ambitious, but the truth is, it might be more lazy than virtuous. So it's somewhere in there.
Sure, sure. Um, well, so what? It seems to me that you're a high community guy. Just kind of seeing, following you for the last few years and just seeing some stories what really inspires you to make the music that you make? Because it definitely has its own fit, its own niche, right? So, what inspires you, Andy?
I think you're right. I think community is really important to me. So I think when it comes to songwriting, I've said this a lot before, but I think it's really important. It's something that can save somebody's life,
Hmm.
and it's not that important. It's not any more important than anything else. So I think I want to have a life that's not just based around songwriting. That's based around real relationships with people who I get to know and who know me, and then out of that, just want to write songs that kind of honor whatever my life experience is and the life experience of the people around me. And so when I do write songs, I want to take it seriously because I think first of all, it can do a lot of good for my own heart. But uh, I think without, when I talk to young songwriters, especially ones who move to Nashville, I'm like, it's really important to find yourself a strong community so that you have something to write about, so that you have stories that you're pulling from, and ways that you're engaging with real life people, and not just writing theoretically about what the human life should be like. So I think that the community comes first, and then the songs kind of are inspired by that and are an outpouring from that.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems like it just in what you write. Um, and what is your creative process like when you sit down to do that? Are you in a group? You're writing with a lot of people? Or is it just you by yourself? Like, what's kind of that process, that plan?
It's all over the map. I do a number of co-writes. I mean, not a ton in Nashville standards, but I might do like one a week, and those look like they're totally different than the songs I write by myself. But it usually looks like sitting around and just talking about life for 3 or 4 hours, and then being like, "Oh, what do we want to write a song about?" And then if we write a song, then great. If not, I don't care. I quit uh, caring if we have a song after I would only sit down to write with somebody that I wouldn't mind just hanging out with for 4 hours, and just for the sake of hanging out.
Yeah.
So I'm not disappointed if we don't write something, but usually we do. I mean, um, so that's some of the, I'd say maybe 30-40% of what I write would be co-writes like that. And the rest is just by myself, which the process for that is, who knows? Um, it's There's nothing. Um, I should have some patterns and things set in place, and I don't. A lot of times when stuff that I write by myself, at least part of the song, almost part of every song that I write by myself, is in the shower. So I have a notepad,
Nice.
a waterproof notepad in the shower that just has lyrics on it that I'll just kind of zone out in the shower, and
Mm,
it's weird.
yeah.
So,
So
I mean, I do recommend young songwriters just write naked. I think that's the way to do it. That's how I
hey,
do it.
that's great. That sounds fun. Actually.
Yeah.
Um,
It's vulnerable.
yeah. And you do. I mean, you are. You have. Aren't there some young songwriters in your community that you're kind of pouring into? I mean, I thought I saw something. Is it called? Maybe it's not called this, but the Rabbit Room. Is that what? Maybe that is. I don't know. It might have been sponsored
Yeah.
by it or something, and y'all had like a bunch of different songwriters, and you guys are on there with some other young ones. Is
Mhm.
is that part of that community there for you in Tennessee that you guys have some up and coming guys that you kind of spend time with and mentor, or what does that look like?
Well, the Rabbit Room is certainly a resource um, for writers of all stages and ages, and all kinds of writers. And I've been, you know, uh, I'm not officially. I do a lot of stuff with the Rabbit Room. Andrew Peterson started it years ago, um, but I'm not like officially a um, Rabbit Room like staff employee kind of person.
Right, right.
Uh, but aside from that, it's like there are a lot of young writers that I do write with, young artists, and maybe I'm old enough to where hopefully I can have some sort of wisdom to pass on to them. But that's not the way that I look at it. I just look at it as they're as much of a songwriter as I am, so we're just in it together, talking about life, and um, you know, trying to write a song. There are other. I do kind of have a heart for. Um, it's weird calling it something like mentoring, because I find it weird that, how do you qualify who's a more successful or songwriter than somebody else? I mean, it's all
Hmm.
so subjective.
Sure.
Um, but I did start there's a number of years ago that I would have group of writers from Belmont University down the road where I went to school, and just try to have a songwriting group. And I would give them prompts, and we would get together and play what we worked on. And I would do the prompts too, because I just want to be a part of it. So there are things like that, but it's. I wish I had more time in my life, honestly, to do that. But these days, it mostly looks like writing with younger artists.
Yeah. Um, and what is maybe one of the greatest piece of songwriting advice you've ever been given in your life?
Wow.
I'm sure there's many, but just maybe one that stuck out to you.
I'll say a couple that stand out to me. One was back in 1993. I came to Nashville from Texas to do a retreat for the NSAI, which is Nashville Songwriters Association International,
Hmm.
I think. And there were a number of writers there, like country writers, that kind of helped teach the rules of country songwriting, the formula, if you will, which some people don't like that word. I like it just fine. I liked learning the rules, and I've
Sure.
studied it. I like studying it. I loved country music, and so we spent like 2 days going through all this stuff and like, oh, here's what it has to be like. Here's what rhyme scheme. Here's whatever. And then the last day was one of my favorite country songwriters. His name was Hugh Presswood,
Mm.
and he was just saying it's really important that we learn all these rules, because once you know them, now we're going to break them. So he was saying it's totally fine to break the rules as long as you know what they are and you're breaking them on purpose, which I appreciated. I think a lot of songwriters sometimes break the rules without knowing what the rules are. Not that that's bad, but I think doing it intentionally and say, "Oh, I'm breaking the rule because this," and the rule is there to kind of make the song easy to digest for the listener, which I think is important. Being kind to
Mhm.
the listener. And then another piece of advice was from my songwriting hero, David Wilcox, who said, you don't want to write songs about who you are. You want to write into who you want to become. So it's kind of imagining, like, the songs are at some level aspirational, um, to where maybe I don't quite feel this way, but I want to write myself into feeling that way,
Yeah,
um, which has,
that's interesting.
he probably told me that 20 something years, and both of those things have stuck with me for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, that last one's pretty interesting. Wow. And David Wilcox, I don't really know much about him. I know who he is. Is he a guy there in Nashville as well, or what is his claim to fame up there?
He is actually in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Um, and somebody, when I was in high school, a cousin of mine gave me kind of a bootleg cassette of David playing at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival in Colorado. And when I heard his songs, it just, like, they slayed me. And, not just because they were really well written and performed, but there was, like, a heart aspect to them, like a healing kind of aspect to them that really took me by surprise. And it kind of made me want to copy him the rest of my life.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, my goal was to be like a okay David Wilcox knockoff. So that's what I'm shooting for.
Oh, awesome. Um, do you love what are some things you love about well, really just like live or studio? Do you love both things, or which one do you prefer one over the other, or does it really matter at the end of the day?
I would definitely prefer performing live over studio, although I enjoy playing stuff in the studio just
Hmm.
fine. But I'm not like a big extrovert or anything, but I do get energy from the connection of the songs bouncing off of somebody else. And so I'd rather, and I look at a live show as kind of like improv, where you're trying to just pay attention to what's happening in the room, even if it's just a perception of how people are receiving something,
Right.
and then adjust to it. So to me, that's endlessly fun, especially because I never do for myself like these kind of tours where like it's like this one show and I go there and I do the same show every night. Every night is like completely different just based on what the event is, who the people are. And so to me, there's a lot of energy there and just kind of
Mm.
having to keep my eyes open and pay attention and try to adjust to what I feel like the temperature of the room is.
Wow. Um, what are some of your hopes for your music that you create?
Hmm. I would say, well, there are a lot of hopes built into every song, but ultimately, I would hope that somebody else might see themselves in whatever the story is that I'm telling, uh, and feel a little bit less alone. So on some level, I think that's a general hope for all the songs. Um, hmm, that might be my best answer right now.
No, that's awesome.
The other hope is that they would make me millions of dollars, and one of those hopes is more achievable than the other.
Understood. Are there any acoustic brands that you really enjoy playing? I'm not sure what you play on, but is there one that you really love?
I do. I've mostly played Larave's. Um, I got one early in college, and that got stolen, and I replaced it with another one that I bought in 1993,
Mm,
and that's been my favorite guitar ever since. I have some other ones uh, that are great guitars, uh, really great guitars, but none of them touched my Larrivee to me. It's just playing that Larrivee just feels like uh, it's home to me.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
and the other guitars I like for different reasons, but especially for the open tuning stuff. And if I'm traveling and I'm playing my main Larrivee, then I know that I'm going to be comfortable and it's
sure.
going to sound great.
Yeah, my only Larrabee story of my whole life is that one time um, I was, I had a roommate early on when I was like 20 something, and he always wanted me to like, play guitar while he sleeps. I know that sounds super awkward, like to get him to go to bed. So like I'm like laying on my bed playing, and I had just a little, little Siegel guitar, not much, and that's all I could afford. So I had one, and I remember like he finally fell asleep. He's like, "Good night. I'm so glad this guy's asleep." So like, and this was every night. So like, we're still good buddies, but like, I had to play him to sleep. And even now he'll call me like, "Hey, can you send me just like a quick little, a couple chords?" It's really funny. But I put my guitar like right by my bed, and that morning I guess I must have woken up late, and I turned over, and I literally fell on my guitar, and just it was gone. And I was thinking, oh no, like I've got to play tonight, and I don't even I have nothing. And so the guy I was working with at the time, he didn't play much anymore. He said, "Hey, here, take this guitar. It's a Larrivee." And I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." So I played it for a couple weeks, I guess maybe a couple months until I could afford to get whatever. I think I bought a Taylor or something. And and then he was like, "Hey, can I have the Larrivee back?" I was like, Why do you why do you want to? Can I just keep it for a little bit longer?"
How dare you take this away from me?
Yeah.
They're great
Um,
guitars.
yeah, no, they're solid ones. And I've played a Taylor for a long time, but my brother got me into the Gibson. I
Mm,
have a Gibson Hummingbird now, and
mm.
I didn't. I was like, I don't want to do the typical. I don't want to do Gibson. I don't want to do it. Everyone does Gibson, and they sound great. They're fine. But it was a good deal. I couldn't pass it up. It's like, oh, I'll just go ahead and get it. So I've liked the Hummingbird. It has a great sound. Um, and we were actually in Tennessee this summer, and we were just traveling up through there, and we stopped, and I went and I played on a McPherson guitar, and I've
Mm.
never played on one before, and it was really nice sounding guitars, you know.
Yeah,
Have you ever played one of those, like the
I
McPherson brand?
have.
Yeah.
I have. I don't have one. I have a number of friends who have them, and they're really nice. I mean, I really think I came across kind of an a '70s Martin that I have,
Hmm.
um, and then Olson, which is a custom guitar that I got uh, after I got out of college, and that's probably the most expensive one that I have for sure,
Hmm.
and I love it. But they just don't do the same thing for me that the Larrivee does.
It just does
I
it for
wouldn't
you.
trade that guitar for the world, and I have nightmares sometimes of it getting stolen or something because I've played on it. Like every record that I've ever played on
Yeah.
has been with that guitar, and yeah, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I'd do without it. It's a good one.
Yeah, we went to, I believe it was, I can't remember the name of the store, but they had a 1918 Gibson acoustic. I was like, well, I'll play on that thing. Man, that sounded even better than the McPherson. I was like, man, honey, can we think about this one? But
Yeah,
she
those
said
aren't.
no. Usually she says yes,
They're
but
not
not
cheap.
this time. No, no, this was
Yeah.
well above my pay grade. Well, hey, I'm looking at your T-shirt, and I stay hungry 24/7, and I see taco, Ladybird Taco, and
Hmm.
is that what is that? Is that um, a place you go to a
It's
lot, or what?
yes. I go there way too much. It's all the weight that I've gained in the last 3 years is from this place.
Nice.
But I've always I grew up in Austin, and coming to Nashville, the thing that I've missed the most were breakfast tacos and homemade
Nice.
tortillas. You
Mm-hmm.
can't find a place that would do that in Nashville.
No.
So I'd always be whining about it to my friend Gabe, who was
Mm-hmm.
probably on one of those tours that you saw playing for Andrew Peterson back in the
Sure.
day. And because his wife is from Houston, and so he had experienced the goodness of breakfast tacos. So we talked about it for years about, man, we should have a breakfast taco place here where you have fresh tortillas, homemade tortillas, and breakfast tacos, and we talked about it for a long time, and finally he said, "Hey, I think I'm going to quit music and open the taco shop. Are you in?" And I was like, "No, I'm ready. I mean, I'm in for eating, but I do not want to open up a restaurant." And
Yeah.
he did it. He opened up Ladybird Taco, so it's like Austin-inspired breakfast tacos here in Nashville,
Nice.
and they just opened a second location down in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's a mile from my house. So I walk there and get my breakfast tacos, and it's it's amazing. And it's kind of it's almost like the school cafeteria for Nashville musicians, where if I'm ever feeling lonely, I just go sit in there and I'll see a number of friends hanging out, which is fun.
No, that's awesome. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is your high five buddy, right? This
Yeah,
Gabe. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is a pretty inspiring story in itself. I've heard you share that before. Is that something you guys do still today?
We do. It's this April will be 9 years of every week walking a mile and a half to give each other a high five, which is sounds really stupid because it is. And Ladybird Taco is actually right on the. It's the only restaurant on the high five path. So, but Gabe kind of selfishly put it closer to his house than mine. So, but yeah, we've been seeing each other every week, walking a mile and a half to give each other a high five. Actually, we'll probably do that tomorrow morning because it's the one day I'll be in town this week. But um, yeah, still going
Wow.
strong.
Yeah, and he ended up getting really sick, and that really was a big part of his recovery. Is that right?
He did. He ended up a couple years ago getting encephalitis and meningitis, and he lost a lot of his memory, all of it for a little bit, and then slowly been getting some of it back and learning how to live without the pieces that he doesn't get back. Um, but through that process, we kind of realized, even though he couldn't remember doing the high five every week, there are things about that his body remembered. I mean, just, just the habit of it and the friendship. Uh, it With him going through that, it just made it that much more precious to us.
Yeah, sure. Um, well, I want to just kind of round out our time together, Andy, and then talk about I mean that's part of your community there, which seems like you value that a lot in your life, and it's a big part of your life. Why is it so? Why is community so important to you?
Oh, that's a good question. I've tried to, well, one answer is I've tried to live without it, and it doesn't work very well. So
Mm,
from a practical base, you know, it just makes for a life that's more fun.
yeah.
And I don't say that as a, like, to minimize it. I think the fact that it feels really good to be in community with people, that's a good enough reason to do it. But um, I don't know. It's the more that I build history with people, like, I still text with uh, my college roommates and college friends almost every day. Um, a group of guys, and it's stupid stuff, but to me, I'm just a sucker for the long history, kind of like the high five is. But when you
Sure.
have these relationships that you cultivate over a long period of time, even if you're not talking to each other all the time or talking about anything deep or serious, um, I think the deep part goes underground after a while. Like, it doesn't have to be all big and heavy and meaningful, the conversations, but after a while, it starts growing like roots where it's going really deep underground, and it could feel sometimes on the surface like, oh, we're not doing anything big,
Mm,
but just showing up for each other over, showing up for friends and community when things are hard. Um, then when things are hard for me, I'm not trying to scrape together people who are going to be there by my side.
mm.
There we have a foundation of being there for each other, and I can't think of a better way to live.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Well, I want to ask you a few more questions, and my kids would be so frustrated if I didn't ask you this question. But one of their favorite songs is "Skinny Jeans," and just real briefly, there's just a few songs I want to ask you about. But "Skinny Jeans," we'll start out with that one. Just a quick, brief overview of that. What made you want to write that song? Um,
Well, I mean, on a real basic level,
yeah,
a lot of those songs come out of my own insecurity. So that's one answer. It's my own insecurity. But
sure.
specifically, it was coming home to the Nashville airport and seeing a band pick up their luggage from the band's called Hot Shell Ray. And I remember seeing all the stickers on their guitars. I'm like, man, those guys look so cool. They were all wearing scarves and like skinny jeans and just were really fashionable. And I've been called a lot of things, but fashionable is not one of them. And so I would just kind of see these guys and be like, oh man, if that's what it takes to make it in the music business, I'm never gonna make it. So um, yeah, it's really shallow. I just write a song to make myself feel better about not being cool.
Um, and the new pair of eyes. That's one of the songs that I've just connected with over the years, and I think it's just because the opening line is "He peed all over my Sunday clothes." I think
Yeah,
if you're a
sorry.
parent and you're listening to this, like you can connect with that one thing, um, which kind of takes people by surprise. You just open it up, right? There's this beautiful guitar thing, and then he's like, "Hey, he peed." So, um, I'm pretty sure that was a real life experience for you, wasn't it?
Unfortunately, more than once. Uh, but yes, and that song actually was. inspired by a story that I don't know that I could tell you the whole story. My wife might get mad at me, but it was essentially um, my oldest. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is now 21. So when he was 4 or 5 years old, we took him to some event at Belmont University, and he needed to go to the bathroom. So I took him to the public restroom, and he went into the stall, and I could hear him kind of talking to himself. And then I realized that, oh wait, he's like in kindergarten now. He can read, and he was reading things that were written on the bathroom stall. And this is the part I won't tell you is what exactly he read. But my wife told me I'm not allowed to say that. But he read something and then he mispronounced one of the words. And I'm standing outside of the stall when he says this, mispronouncing one of the words, and I'm just cracking up. Like I just think it's the funniest thing ever. But I don't want him to hear me laughing because I don't want him to repeat whatever he just read at school or anything like that.
Sure.
But it was one of those moments where I really was like, it never occurred to me. Like bathroom graffiti, I see it in a completely different way now that I have a child who's going in there and is reading that stuff. Stuff that I would just see and be like, oh, whatever, that's on there. And, and I would write it myself. Just kidding. But he would, now that I have a kid, I just look at the whole world differently, including bathroom graffiti. So I really wrote that song because I wanted to tell the story, and then was, my wife has better judgment. She's like, do not tell every detail of that story. So then I was just left with somebody peeing on my Sunday clothes.
No, that's great. Another one of my kids, they love this song, is Not Bad Enough, which they think that's just a cool. And I think it's just because you sing the song, and there was one lyric. Man, I hope I get this right. What is the lyric? Hooker or something like that. Is that one of the lines in the song? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I think it talks about hookers or something.
Yeah, so right when that happened, I had a hand raised. Dad, what's a hooker?
You're welcome.
No, I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah, so this is a hooker, honey. So
yeah,
so we had.
It's kind of like a fisherman.
Yes, Fisher. And one that my son at 5 years old, we just found your whatever the record is with the heart on it. That's
Fault Lines, probably.
Fault Lines, that's right. Yeah, Fault Lines. Great record, but like one song he connected at 5 years old, he loved Broken Heart. Like that was his song. And every time we played it, he was like, Dad, play it again, repeat. And where he could get, now he just knows it by memory. And so those songs have just really, been something in our family that's been a great thing to sing along with, and it connects with us somehow, some way. And even my kids really like you. So,
Wow.
next
Thank
generation, you. Andy. As we kind of round out our time, I appreciate you coming on and spending your time with us today. One thing that I have one more question for you, but before I get to that, we usually have people that maybe that be friends of yours or whatever, whoever our guest is, give just like some words that describe you. Well, the funny thing is I don't know any of your friends, so it's like I can't, like I think I tried reaching out, but they're not going to respond to me. So like I didn't get anyone.
I don't
to
have
respond.
any friends. That's why.
Yeah, there you
I've
go.
got no friends.
So I thought, you know what? I guess I'll let you know. Just with myself and my family. There's a song that you wrote and with your wife on her latest EP, and I believe you wrote. It's called "Prison of the Past." Did you guys wrote that together, correct? And it says, "They say if you never face it, you're gonna pass it on. Sometimes the only way to honor the pain is to feel it all." And I can't tell you that line. To honor the pain is to feel it all. In seasons in my life where I've had the great pleasure to be a part of churches for over 20 years now and serve and stuff, and a lot of that stuff has come. I'm feeling some of the stuff that I went through, just grieving processes and different things, and I really appreciate the way that you you write, the way that you look at life, because I think that you inspire a lot more people than maybe you even plan to.
Hmm.
And I don't really know you very well. This is really my first time meeting you, and besides email or something. And so, I just want to say thank you because, and that's one song of many songs that you've written that I felt like I'm in this therapy session.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
that I have to keep on playing it back because I'm like, I just don't get it. How did I let this get to this point in my life where
Hmm.
it's hard to even function sometimes? And I don't think
Hmm.
I'm the only one. I think there's many people in the world that get to a part
Right.
where we just function out of out of years of work or years of whatever. And it's not being a wuss or nothing. We're just like, I feel like I'm becoming more self aware of a few things in my life, and a lot of it has to do the last few years just with your material and your products and just your records you've been putting out. And I just want to say thank you, man. And
Wow.
even with my family, from the funny songs like Skinny Jeans or something, um, we can put on a song and we can cry to it, we can laugh to it, we can dance to it, we can even smirk and smile. And I think that's something that not many people have, and I think God's really blessed you with that special gift to love people and to help people heal. And I think that's kind of where I'm at in my life is just healing from a few things, and the Lord is doing His work in me. But this really helps to know that
Hmm.
hey, um, there's more than one person that feels things, and they have to feel it. Yet time it takes time.
Hmm.
So, anyways, that's a long
Wow.
way to say thank you, and hope it encourages you,
My
man.
goodness. Thank
And
you. Thank you for saying
um,
that, and I'm really honored. And you gave a much better answer for what the hope is in my songwriting. I would hope that people can connect to it in the way that you uh, mentioned, both like the laughing and the crying and the kind of the full spectrum of what it's like to be a human. Um, so I'm honored that you would listen to it and that your family would listen to it and that it would meet you in those places. Because I mean, if you're like me, a lot of us weren't taught very well how to feel at all, and even if we were, it's not doesn't feel very efficient all the time. So
mm,
to feel things,
yeah,
um, but yeah, coming to a place where it's like, well, I think if if I want to be well,
mm,
then I need to start going down that road. And I'm grateful that I haven't had to walk that road alone. That other people kind of pour into me, and anything healing that you feel in the lyrics is probably just me recycling, therapy that I've had, people that have helped me heal in my own life. So I'm happy to pass that on. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm thankful for the community that I have here as well, and um, I cherish that as well. So, Andy, I appreciate your time. One last quick question. This podcast is really all about just hearing people's stories, and many are from we had a monastery teacher, we've had countless musicians, just different people, dance instructor. Um, and what would you tell someone? How would you encourage someone that's maybe in the behind the scenes and backing up someone or just serving for many years? How would you encourage them in their just day to day life?
Hmm. I think, uh, particularly, I think of Eugene Peterson. I don't know if you have much interaction or with Eugene Peterson in your life,
Mm-hmm.
but he was always a pastor of a small church, and it wasn't like a big mega church pastor or anything. But he really taught me that that small things matter, like the small acts of love, um, and to me that translates into being, lifting up somebody in the limelight. Being a side person or a behind the scenes person is like that matters. And so I think, for me, that's one thing I'd want to say is that every doing whatever it is with love, it really does matter. I think we're forced into feeling like this sense of Christian, one kind of humility where it's like, oh, I can't, I don't want to be in the front, but like really warring with the parts of ourselves that want to be in the front. And I think there's a way. I'm grateful for people in my life who've shown me there's a way to like both own what it is that you're good at and that you're gifted at and what you love to do, and to step into that boldly, but also with humility, where it's like, I love to do this. Not everybody's going to love to do this.
Sure.
I write songs. They're not going to be the greatest songs in the world. Not everybody's going to want to listen to them, but some people want to listen to them. So I'm going to write them, and I'm going to step into that with confidence. It doesn't mean that I have to be sheepish about doing what I love to do. I think just stepping into it, and but knowing ultimately that it is a gift, just like anybody else has a gift. It's just a different kind of gift, and we're all, so part of that is just appreciating other people's gifts as well. But to be fair, there's some personalities, some people that, for whatever reason, like I said, it's not when I was talking about laziness earlier, it might not be all like these amazing qualities that make people be humble and in the background. It's just more the way they're wired. And other people are wired to be out in the front. And I'm like, if you're wired to do that, be out in the front. And I'll be happy to be playing guitar behind you, because then you get all the pressure and I don't. So, so it's more about just owning what's right for you and stepping into it.
Wow, that's great. Well, hey, if you're listening to this today and you want to, check out Andy, you can go to andygullahorn.com. There's a lot of great resources on there. And then also, if you want to support what he's doing as well, you can support him. There's a few different memberships here on Patreon, and I'm sure he would greatly appreciate that. Andy, I appreciate you being here today and joining us on Unsung. I hope the best for you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To this place that's around him, he's lightning.
We want to thank Beautiful Contributors for allowing us to use their music for the Unsung podcast. You can support them by going to any platform, anywhere you listen to music, and purchasing and listen to their music. They also might have some vinyl or CD still available. You can reach out to them, but support Beautiful Contributors.